Hey, what's going on, kings and queens? This your boy Beard Samson, and I feel like today's video is a much needed video. And the simple question that I ask you, right? In times of injustice and discrimination, who are you? Would you be Martin or Malcolm? Let's get into the video. With everything that's going on in the world today, the country is in a state of unrest. With the senseless and innocent killing of many black folk all around the world, man, it's getting too out of hand. And something has to be done. Now, a lot of celebrities have since came out or have been coming out to give you their words of what they think should happen and how the looting is bad or whatever. And let me add that the looting is not only black people, and in many cases is not started by black people. Let me just say that. And in all riots, there are paid government officials to go out and cause chaos and problems because they want it to seem like it's not a peaceful protest. That is true in a lot of protests. You got to watch out for those moles, so to speak, or government agents, because they'll be the ones that are breaking in and looting and throwing rocks and all this other stuff that we really don't have time for if we're trying to get some things accomplished. That's why you see a lot of the looting. There are paid government officials that are actually starting the looting on their own. Now, in this video, I'm asking you, during times of injustice and discrimination, who would you be? Would you be Martin? Would you go for more of the peaceful, nonviolent protests? Or would you be Malcolm? Because we all know Malcolm stood for by any means necessary. Get to the root of the problem. Both of these men noticed that there was a problem in America, period. They knew that black people were being unjustly harmed, hurt. We were in danger. The Constitution couldn't protect us because they actually made us property. I don't think you heard me. They actually made us property. So that means that we didn't have a soul to them, to the human beings. We weren't human beings. Have you ever heard of 3/5 human being? Well, you know what? I'm not going to actually explain everything. Let's get right into the video. Let's go. Now, as you guys can see, why did Martin Luther King prefer peaceful and nonviolent protests?
To use legal and nonviolent methods to gain full citizenship rights for the Negro people of our country. Of course, that particular struggle and that philosophy centered on breaking down all of the barriers of legal segregation. So I would say that in that period, the basic thrust for the gaining of citizenship rights for Negroes was to end the humiliation surrounding the whole system of legal segregation.
Now, you heard Martin's philosophy on why he used nonviolent and peaceful protests to get his message across. Now let's go into what Malcolm's philosophy was on racial discrimination and injustice.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate. We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking him. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
You just heard two different perspectives on why Martin actually chose nonviolent and peaceful marches, and why pretty much Malcolm chose to do anything by any means necessary to get to the root of the problem. Now, both of these men were criticized heavily on both sides for even doing peaceful protests for Martin. Now, you know Malcolm was criticized for by any means necessary because they thought he preached hate. So they said. He didn't preach hate. He just preached black love. He preached love for black people and black folk. The reason why they took two different approaches is because Martin believed that we needed to be integrated into a system. He wanted us to be integrated into a system. That's why he chose a peaceful protest. It's because we had to show people that we wasn't monsters. We wasn't animals, that we could learn. That we could be outstanding and upstanding citizens in the society that white America had already built without us, because it wasn't intended for us. Now I'm gonna go back and we finna go to Martin's methodology of thinking was practical and beneficial for blacks during those times, and here's why. So we finna see why Martin chose to do it the way that he did it, because he was successful at doing what he did during those times, and this is why he chose to do it his way.
Sir, in addition to your commitment to the idea of nonviolence, wasn't it also the only thing you could do, the white community having the monopoly on violence, that if you had tried violence, they would have met it with violence? It was the only device open to you, wasn't it?
Well, I'll put it another way, that...
Now see, with that question right there, the reporter, the news guy, he tried to trick Martin into saying, well, you know what? We got more power than you, or we have the army, in which they did. They got the army, they got the government, they had all of the weapons, they had everything, you know, against Martin. And he tried to trick Martin with that question into like, almost like to beating him into submission. Now they was playing chess when he asked that question. And now watch how Martin answered though.
That morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. Now, there is no doubt about the fact that in our struggle in Montgomery and all over the United States for that matter, nonviolence is also practically sound. It would just be impractical for the Negro to turn to violence. He has neither the instruments nor the techniques of violence. We are about 10 or 11% of the total population of the nation, and I would say we're about 1/10 of the firepower. So it would just be totally impractical and unwise and unrealistic for the Negro to think of violence. Well, I saw this in the beginning in Montgomery, but this wasn't the basic reason that I turned to nonviolence and that I believed in it as a philosophy. I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
So back during those times, if we would have tried to use force to go and get what we wanted, they would have pretty much just slaughtered us like animals. And then they would have been justified because back then, the white man was right about everything. It didn't matter what you said because your color didn't mean anything to them. We had just gotten out of slavery. We was only, I don't even know how many years removed from slavery, but you know, it was just like we could go back in the blink of an eye and be back in that same situation. So let's hear more on Malcolm's philosophy of an eye for an eye.
You and I have to let the man know is we are peaceful people. We are loving people. We love everybody who loves us. But we don't love anybody who doesn't love us. We're nonviolent with people who are nonviolent with us. But we are not nonviolent with anyone who is violent with us. And now that I have the independence of action, it's my intention to work with everybody or against everybody, whatever the case may be, to try and get some kind of immediate solution to the problems that are confronting our people. I don't think when a man is being criminally treated, that some criminal has the right to tell that man what tactics to use to get the criminal off his back. When a criminal starts misusing me, I am going to use whatever necessary to get that criminal off my back. And the injustice that has been inflicted upon Negroes in this country by Uncle Sam is criminal. The government is responsible for the injustices. The government can bring these injustices to halt.
In Washington. And then again, if we tell you that Negroes are being hung on the tree or being shot down illegally, unjustly, and those Negroes should do something to protect themselves, you say you're advocating violence. The white man is tricking you. He's trapping you. He doesn't call it violence when he lands troops in South Vietnam. Please. He doesn't call it violence when he lands troops in Berlin. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, he didn't say get nonviolent. He said, praise the Lord, but pass the ammunition. But when someone attacks you, when someone comes at you with a club, when someone comes at you with a rope, when someone comes at you with a gun, despite the fact that you've done nothing, he tells you, suffer peacefully. Pray for those who use you despitefully. Be long-suffering. And how long can you suffer after suffering for 400 years?
Now, you've heard two different perspectives on how great leaders actually handled the same situation during those times of injustice and racial discrimination. Again, I ask you, who are you? Martin or Malcolm? Now, I want to actually go into this next video clip of the real reason why African Americans are being gunned down still today.
What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
That's a part of it, and that grows out of something else. You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here in chains, treated in very inhuman fashion, and this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
So a lot of people still ask today, why are we so far behind in the race? Because see, a lot of people don't know that it was a race to get over here to claim land. And you know, in the Americas, you know, people wanted to come here, claim land so that you can be rich in the new land. You know, that's why we are that's why we have capitalism now, you know, and the people that own the land here are some of the richest people, the people that own the land and the banks, you know. So, and those were some of the first settlers in which they took everything from the Native Americans who were already native to this land. They came and they slaughtered the Native Americans and just took over everything. So people still ask today, why are you guys so far behind? It's like being a no-leg man in an ass-kicking contest.
What?
And Martin put it the best way. They said, well, why can't you lift yourself with your own bootstraps? Well, you guys left us pretty much naked without no boots or anything. No land to cultivate or anything. So how could we lift ourselves from our bootstraps? We had nothing. We were relocated to a land as slaves, and not even as slaves. We were even lower than slaves because they made us property and never intended to give us any rights. That's why they can kill an unarmed black man or unarmed black woman or a minority or Hispanic or any person of color without any resolve to seek, because they know that this system wasn't made for us. And they made our skin color a stigma. So let's get into these closing remarks by Malcolm.
I think you'll find, sir, that there will come a time when black people wake up and become intellectually independent enough to think for themselves, as other humans are intellectually independent enough to think for themselves. Then the black man will think like a black man, and he will feel for other black people. And this new thinking and feeling will cause black people to stick together. And then at that point, you'll have a situation where when you attack one black man, you are attacking all black men. And this type of black thinking will cause all black people to stick together. And this type of thinking also will bring an end to the brutality inflicted upon black people by white people. And it is the only thing that will bring an end to it. No federal court, state court, or city court will bring an end to it. It's something that the black man has to bring an end to himself.
Now, with that video wrapping up, again, I ask you, in a time of racial discrimination and injustice and the killing of unarmed black men and women, as well as Hispanics, as well as Asians, who would you be during this time? Martin or Malcolm? All right, kings and queens, that's going to do it for this video. I'll see you guys on the next one. And in the comment box, before you get out of here, can you like, comment, and I want you to comment either Martin or Malcolm in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.